This is episode 17 of Standing Out. Standing Out is a remarkable interview-style podcast with the intention to highlight women and men making outstanding contributions in their field. This podcast is generously sponsored by Think Global. Think Global is a business advisory firm working with women entrepreneurs around the globe to scale their businesses to the next level. And today we have Amy Scerra and Steve Hasse, founders of Think Global. After working with women entrepreneurs in over 26 countries, from Afghanistan to Pakistan to Bolivia to Malaysia, Amy knew for certain that women are the catalyst for global growth, health, progress, and forward-thinking leadership. Steve is a recovered corporate business advisor. Steve saw the light after volunteering with his advisory services to a group of Afghan women over the course of the year. He realized that women business owners are truly the ones making positive impact and sustainable change in our world. And Amy and Steve are the co-founders of Think Global, so this is really exciting to have our sponsors here today. Welcome, Amy and Steve.
Hi, thank you.
Thanks. So I want to know more about that piece, that shift that happened that was the catalyst for working with women. And Amy, let's start with you actually, because you were working with a lot of women. So talk us through how that shift happened and why it's so important to support women.
Sure. I as you mentioned in the introduction, my career started working with women internationally, and these women were coming from developing countries, and they all had businesses, and their reason for starting a business is remarkably different than I think most women here in the United States experience. They're starting a business out of need, and a lot of times they're heads of household, and they are tasked with keeping their family fed and safe and in school and healthy, and their business is their way to do that. And Steve at the time was living in California, and we were dating at the time, and he was, we would talk about all of the corporate clients that he had. He was working with some professional athletes, and it was just, he felt unfulfilled. I mean, I'll let him tell his side of the story, but I said, I think it would be beneficial for everybody here if you thought about volunteering some of your time working with these women that I'm working with, because truly all they need is someone to sit down with them face to face and talk to them like a business owner, not like a charity case or a woman coming, with all the typical stereotypes that people think of, from Afghanistan or some of these developing nations, to talk to them like a business owner. And so Steve, he agreed, and he was excited about it, but I don't think that he quite knew what to expect and what was in store for him. These women, they call him Brother Steve. They look at him like, they look at him like part of their family. Yeah. And I think for the first time, they were viewed as an equal and as someone that had really achieved success through their hard work. And, they're conquering obstacles that you and I could never fathom dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Right. And for Steve to sit down with them and treat them like he would any of his other clients, I think that it was sort of a light bulb moment for all of us, where we really just realized that business owners, no matter where you're from, where you're doing business, we're all more similar than we think we are. And so I think that was really the first shift that I saw Steve take, was to understand how impactful his words and support were. I don't think that you necessarily achieve that type of impact or change when you're working for a corporation. You're mostly checking a box. But when you're working with small business owners, you're changing their life. You're changing the lives of everybody in their family and around them.
So this is so interesting, because I've known both of you for quite a while, and I had no idea that this all started with a simple conversation on the couch of, well, Steve, you should go talk to them. So Steve, when you did go talk to them, like, did you come in with any expectation, or like, what were you thinking? Like what sort of mindset did you walk into? Did you feel like there's going to be this amazing shift, or were you just going to check it out?
I think I started off terrified. And that's not a feeling I was familiar with, because I was pretty sure that when I walked into a business meeting at any time, I was going in prepared, ready, and people were going to get businessy. And so Amy convinces me, and through the process of where I was at the time, I was running another company and running, hard and focused on just the stereotype of maximizing profitability, not only for myself, but for my clients. And when you focus on that, and that is the goal, and it runs out on you. It will run out on you at some point, and you'll look for something else. And it was just one of those perfect moments where here we are. Amy's like, come do this. And I'm like, I'm going to take a sabbatical and do that and try this out for a little bit. And I was blown away. I was just like, wow, we want to make business so complicated. And we want to show everyone in the world that there's so many systems and processes and all these things that go into business, and you need everybody, you need help, and you got to spend a lot of money. And then I sit in there and I go, business is practically the same everywhere you go. Business is made up of people, not systems and processes. And when you start with people and you start looking at these women and what they're doing, they're making a product or have a service to offer, and they go out and sell it. They hopefully do that for a little bit more money than it costs them, and they make money. And that is business. I mean, truly, I just had that aha moment of going, strip it down and just get to the core of this.
So what's the unifying theme when you're working with women in this country or other countries across the globe? Like what is the big thing that they need help with, or the big struggle or reason for bringing you in?
I think it goes to confidence, and being, and I don't like when they say it, but a lot of them will say, "You've given me permission." I'm not here to give you permission. Show you what you're fully capable of doing, and that you are on track to do, or you have the potential to do. And when you can open that up and show someone that, any human being, that they have this amazing potential for growth, personal growth. And what I've seen is with women everywhere that I've worked with in all the countries, including here, is that when you do that and you open that up, it's never abused. It's actually cherished, and it's actually cared for in a way that they have this impact on not only on me, on their clients, on their teams, on their families, that is so positive that you can keep building on it. And there's sustainability behind it. It's not temporary. They're trying to build something. And that is something that I've seen in every country, every culture with women, that has drawn me into working with women.
Go ahead, Amy.
Sorry, I was going to say, I think also specifically to women, I think that there's a lot of boxes that have been drawn around what women should be. And the boxes are different based upon the culture in which you live. But there's all these boxes that say you should do this or you should be this. And a lot of times women subscribe to those boxes without realizing that they do. And so they're building this business on a facade, basically. The foundation is not true to what they want their life to look like. And so I think something that's unique to Think Global is that we really want to get to the core of what is your definition of success, truly, and be honest with yourself, and be open to exploring what you want your life to look like and what your success, the definition of it is, and own it. And my definition of success is different than yours, Katrina, and it's different than everybody else that we've worked with. And so it's painting that picture to say, what do you want your life to look like? And then we will help you start from the beginning, rebuild that strong foundation to actually build your business to achieve that life. And so it's starting with her first as a person to say, what do you want your life to look like? Your business is just a vehicle to get it there.
And that's so interesting. And I can really relate to those boxes, because there was a time when I felt like those boxes were really, really limited in my life. And then as more opportunities came up, I felt like I had to be in all the boxes. And that's not sustainable for me. And that's not my own definition of success. So just Steve, I know you don't like this term, but that permission to not be in all the boxes, or to be in all the boxes if you choose. that is fine. It's what you're defining it as. So I think that is a really great piece of wisdom.
It doesn't really matter, men or women. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. When I walk into a business, and this is with hundreds of them, you can in 5 minutes determine, is the business driving the person or is this person driving the business? And majority of the time, the business is driving the person. And so before I go in and suggest all these amazing things you can do at your business, how do we stop that, right? How do you take control of the wheel of this business? And it comes down to really, as Amy said, first of all, why are you doing this business? And what is the purpose of this business? And then we'll get there. And so really, who's driving, right? The business or you? And until that's figured out, you really can't help a business.
So let's talk, that's so true. And I think everyone can agree that you can walk in, or even when you meet someone at a networking event, you get that exact feeling of what's happening there. So I recently found out, and I've known you for a couple of years. I had no idea. Think Global was formerly called the Amy Project. And not to call you out, but I think so many startups and just businesses in general struggle with creating that vision and creating a brand. So I would love for one of you to share how you went from the Amy Project to such an incredible brand of Think Global, where people want to get behind you and partners support you and the communities support you. So how do you stretch it to to a name and a vision that has a brand that can grow?
Well, first, let me say the Amy Project was never even on the table. This is all in Steve's mind. There's no way that it would ever be called the Amy Project. But my opinion.
But hold on, Amy. The reason we called it that was it was my way to stay distant from it, because I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. We were thinking nonprofit initially, right? Because that's the easiest way to do anything, right? Is nonprofit. And then we also thought Amy's the inspiration behind this. I mean, Steve's changed his whole life here in the last, year. Amy's the inspiration behind it. Why wouldn't we call it that? But by calling it that, Steve can just detach from it at any time. And Amy didn't allow for that to happen. And so,
well, I knew that it was bigger than that. And let me step back to a couple steps. I never ever intended on being an entrepreneur. I honestly never in my wildest dreams imagined owning my own business. But I got laid off, and it was not expected. And it was, of course, hindsight is always 20/20. It was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. I had an extremely
probably didn't feel like that at the time.
At the time, it was just scary. Yeah. And, I had an extremely toxic boss, and she wasn't a good person. And it took me a long time to shed that internal talk that I had telling me that I didn't know enough, or I wasn't good enough, or because I don't have my MBA, I can't answer questions. And these were things that took me a long time to shed. And I think Steve was really the only one, him and our good friend Eric Averill, really saw like the potential of these experiences that I had had with these women and the connection that I was able to actually make change in their lives. And they saw it well before I did. And sort of the leadership component, I guess. And I knew that we had something. I knew that what we were doing was different because it was actually making a difference and change was happening in these women's lives. I didn't have the big vision like Steve had. And so I sort of looked to Steve to say, what can we do with this? Where do we take this? It's so much bigger than the Amy Project. But as Steve said, I think that it was, of course, for him, it was safe. Right. So, I think that it just sort of, it evolved because we stayed true to what we really believed. Why we were doing this never wavered. So I think that that's how it kind of evolved. And when you are constant with your message because you truly believe it at your core, and you're willing to put everything into it, I think that people will naturally be there to support you.
Right. Do you feel, you guys have been on quite the ride in the last couple of years with Think Global and all of the women you've worked with, the communities you've been in, and going back global this year, like that, there's a lot going on. Do you have that common experience that's kind of like the roller coaster of entrepreneurialism, of there are days that are up and high, and then there are days that are low, or sometimes there's highs and lows in the same day? Like,
Yes.
are you going through that too?
Oh, minute by minute? Is that what you mean?
Minute by minute, yep, up and down.
I think that we would be completely fake if we said,
yeah, like it's all good.
Yeah,
Good.
we have our own advisors. You can't do this alone, and you can't, as here we are, the advisors to hundreds of businesses, and yet we have to get our own advisors because we're in our own mess over here. I don't want to show you what's behind the scenes over here, but it's the reality, and I don't think anyone can get away from it. If anyone says no, I don't think they're being fully honest with you, because it is an emotional roller coaster, and as human beings, we ride a wave of emotion, and it's hard to stay in this optimal spot. So we go up, we go down, and it's part of our makeup as entrepreneurs to ride it, right? We love it. We love the up, but then we, in the down, we're like, oh, we'll fight through it, or we sit in it for a little bit.
But we also learn a lot. We learn a lot from those downtimes, and that's what makes you a better business, is those downtimes. I mean, if it was always a constant, then that's not a good thing either, because you're not growing, you're not taking risks, you're not doing anything.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and that's a really good point, that you learn from the downtimes, and it's one of the downtimes help you appreciate the up times. That's all great. How do you, when you are having sort of a downtime, how do you recover from that? Like, what is it that makes both of you keep going?
Obviously we have our little girl, and she's, we can't imagine a better way to raise a daughter than surrounded by all these strong women that are leaders and that are so full of passion for what they do, and they're making differences in all of their communities. And so I think having the ability to share that with her is really special. I mean, she's not even 2 yet, but she already has, things about her that I know will, personality traits that I know will serve her well as an adult. And, I think also it's important to rejuvenate yourselves by taking some time off. And Steve is still learning how to do this, but
I think most people are still
learning how to turn off the computer or the phone. And of course, I'm guilty of it too. But how do you recharge? And everybody has a different answer to that. Whether it's the gym or whether it's travel, or what is that thing that makes you feel whole again? It can't just always be about grinding.
Right.
Well, and I think for me, I agree with Amy 100%. We're in a unique situation. We're a family. We're business partners. We're raising our child together as parents. And so where's the outlet, right? For me, I am on 24/7. We have people in every time zone in the world, right? So there's that part. There's, as you and I just had a conversation recently, when I'm working with clients, I'm not working on the business. So when do I do that? I do that at night or at 4 a.m. But for me, truly, during the day, the luxury of being an entrepreneur is that I'm taking 10 to 11 off today, and I'm going to the playground. And I'm going to get on that swing with her, or go down that slide with Valentina. And I'm not going to think about my phone. I'm going to think about Valentina for an hour. And that is so powerful, rejuvenate, for me. And I didn't have, before Valentina, I was a workaholic, right? So I think everyone has to find their own way. But as entrepreneurs, we have this luxury to do it in our own way.
Right. There is this beautiful piece of freedom that comes with being an entrepreneur, as long as you allow yourself to actually take that freedom and enjoy that. So as we start to wrap up here, I would love to know what's on both of your radars as far as trends or hot topics that you think you're starting to hear more about or thinking about, and you think everyone is going to be talking about that this time next year.
That's a great question. We're getting into the purposeful community building. And the thing that we always stress when we talk about Think Global is, we have this global community, and, we share opportunities and resources and networks, and how can we all lift each other up?
Yeah.
But the way that we're building it is so intentional, and it still has to be unique and custom to the business owner. We're not a network. Our community is not a networking group. It's not where you pay a monthly fee and you can log in and read forum chat. Our community has to be different. And I think that people are going to realize that is the next wave of connection, is it has to be thoughtful and meaningful and curated. It's anything that we put in front of our thinkers is curated, and it's not generic, and it's not something you're going to read in Inc. magazine that's applicable to absolutely anybody.
Right.
Think Global is not for everyone. And, we want to make sure that our community is filled with, givers and not takers. And it's filled with people that have expertise and are willing to share it, and have deep networks that are willing to make introductions. And so I think that, for me, I think thoughtful, curated communities is where the future needs to go. It's where Think Global is.
Right.
I would just take that a step further, and I go, and Katrina, I'm gonna play in your ground for a second here. I think more meaningful engagement. I think we live in a world right now that is way too obsessed over a like or over a click on this or whatever, and I think it's becoming expensive distractions to build. I have so many people who just say, I'm on Facebook. That doesn't do anything for your business, to be honest with you. And there has to be meaningful engagement behind it. And I think that also applies offline. I think that we are in such a fast moving world that you have to be surrounded by the right people, and you have to get rid of noise. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I mean that in a you don't have the capacity to handle everything, right?
Right.
So in a loud, noisy world, how do we get more meaningful engagements online and offline?
And you can see that even, when I look at both of your social media presence, like there is no like putting an article for the sake of a like. I mean, I see, what you put out there for Monday Inspiration and the comments that come back on that, like that's real authentic conversation, and that's people lifting other people up, and a community of people are gravitating toward that. So anyway, we'll wrap up with that, but thank you so much, Amy and Sue, for being here. I appreciate it, and I'm sure all of the listeners will too.
Awesome. Thank you so much.